There are places where time does not move. They exist between moments, between one heartbeat and the next, where history has stopped to breathe. Most people pass them without ever knowing, but they are there, the seconds that refused to end. We call this place the Dream Vault. It is not a dream, though it feels like one. It is not memory, though it's built from them. We will take you there under one condition: that time is left exactly as we found it. Even the smallest change can echo without end. This is the contract between us, between the waking world and the one held still. If you accept, then take a deep breath.
The pillow softens, not the way a pillow gives under your head. It softens the way a thing does when it stops being what it was. The linen dissolves into something taut and smooth, cooler than fabric, stretched like a drum skin across a surface too vast for a bedroom. The ceiling lifts, not rising. It was never that close. What you mistook for plaster is silver, translucent, backlit by something pale and enormous on the other side. Gravity tilts. The bed is no longer level. Something is pulling upward, gently, the way a kite pulls at a string, an upward insistence that should not be there. Your bedroom walls open outward and keep going, not walls. The ribcage of something vast, aluminum and wire and cotton and air. Girders recede into shadow in both directions, further than a building should go. The room you are inside is 800 feet long. You are the only living thing that moves here. Everything else is stopped. You may walk, you may touch, you may open, examine, pick up, hold to the light. They remain as they are. Nothing in this world moves except you. Time is yours alone. It is May 6th, 1937, 7:25 in the evening, Eastern Standard Time. Lakehurst Naval Air Station, New Jersey. 200 feet above a wet airfield, you are inside the Hindenburg, LZ 129, the largest aircraft ever built. 804 feet of duralumin and cotton and hydrogen, 3 times the length of a Boeing 747, heavier than a blue whale, lighter than the air it displaces by a margin of 15 tons. That margin is the only thing between flight and falling. A pale orange glow has appeared above the upper tail fin. Fire. Inside a ship filled with 7 million cubic feet of hydrogen. 97 people are aboard. 32 seconds from now, the nose will hit the ground. The passengers on A deck cannot see it yet. The ground crew 200 feet below can. Herbert Morrison is mid-sentence into his microphone. Nobody aboard knows that they are inside a burning building with no floor. The glow is above you. Begin there. The fin structure rises around you. Duralumin ribs, triangulated frames, wire bracing catching the last of the daylight through the translucent outer fabric. The sky outside is visible. Grey, heavy, New Jersey pine forests 200 feet below. The air is still, cold. There is a chemical sharpness to it, like fresh varnish, not unpleasant. You are inside the upper vertical fin of the Hindenburg. 46 feet of fabric-covered aluminum frame above the ship's spine. Look up. a pale orange luminescence hangs above and forward, between the outer skin and gas cell 4. It is not flame, not yet, not the way you know flame. It is hydrogen combustion behind fabric, a ghostly orange wash across the inner surface of the cover, halfway to the nearest ring frame. The leading edge is a sharp, bright line, where burning gas meets gas that has not yet burned. The trailing edge, amber. Press your hand against the outer fabric, near the glow. The heat on the other side is intense, close. The temperature of hydrogen combustion inches from your fingertips. The surface under your fingers is smooth and slightly tacky. Cellulose acetate, butyrate, mixed with aluminum powder and iron oxide. You are touching solid rocket fuel painted onto cotton. Run your fingers along the outer cover towards the brightest point. Smooth gives way to rough, gives way to split. A tear, inches long, the doped cotton curling back from heat, edges blackened, the weave separating fibre by fibre. Through the tear, direct light. Not filtered through fabric anymore. The hydrogen combustion is a pale blue-white flame, almost invisible against the sky. Lean close. The heat on your face is dry and intense, nothing like a wood fire. Hydrogen burns at 2,000 degrees, but its flame is nearly invisible in daylight. The glow the ground crew sees is not hydrogen burning. It is the doped fabric beginning to ignite. The fabric fire will be visible. The hydrogen fire is a ghost. Step forward along the narrow gangway. Aluminum grating underfoot. Bracing wires on both sides, taut with structural tension. Grip a bracing wire, taut as a piano string, vibrating faintly. The structural load of a 242-ton ship pulling against its mooring lines, transmitted through this single strand. The ship is nose up, stern heavy. You can feel it in your legs, the deck sloping backward beneath your feet. Below this fin, more than 200 men on the ground, holding landing ropes, waiting. Above, 7 million cubic feet of hydrogen. Behind you, fire. Look down through the fin's internal walkway. A figure below in the lower vertical stabilizer. A man, mid-40s, Zeppelin uniform. His head is turned aft. His mouth is slightly open. Crouch and study him. This is Ludwig Knorr, helmsman, stationed here for landing operations. He has seen it. His report will describe a glow like St. Elmo's fire, forward of the upper fin, the last thing he sees before running. He will survive. He will run forward along the keel corridor and escape through a hatch before the structure above him collapses. How long between this glow and the end? Walk forward through the access hatch. The fin structure gives way to the main hull and the scale changes. The space opens into a cathedral. The axial corridor is the ship's spine. A triangular aluminum walkway running the entire length, threading between the 16 gas cells. Step in. The space opens vertically. Duralumin girders form triangular trusses that recede into darkness in both directions, further than you can see. Bracing wires crisscross the space in silver lines, hundreds of them, each a different length, each a different pitch. Touch the nearest girder, lightweight duralumin, cold under your fingers. The entire structure is tense. The 4 engines far below arrested mid-idle, their last vibration locked into the metal. The gas cells press in from both sides. Press your palm against the nearest one. Cotton fabric, taut, warm, yielding slightly under pressure, the way a living thing yields. The hydrogen inside is colorless, odorless. You cannot see or smell what fills this cell. 200,000 cubic feet of hydrogen in cell 4 alone, one of 16 cells, each held in place by a web of netting and cord. The cell fabric is not rigid. It is stretched taut at this altitude and temperature. The hydrogen pressing outward, the netting pressing inward, the balance held. Run your hand along the gas cell netting. Cotton cord, knotted at regular intervals, stretched tighter than it should be. Follow the netting down to where it meets the corridor frame. A gap. The cord is abraded, fibers frayed against a bracing wire. The frayed cord means the cell has shifted, hydrogen pressing against the cover in a place the designers did not intend. Feel along the fabric, below the frayed cord. Softness. Give. The cell wall here is not taut, but slack. Hydrogen has escaped. Gas cell 4 showed reduced pressure readings during the flight. Fabric chafed against a bracing wire. A small tear. Hydrogen leaked into the space between the cell and the outer cover. The space where the fire now burns. Walk forward along the axial corridor. Each step echoes on aluminum grating. The cotton walls yield slightly as your shoulders brush them. Warm, taut, alive with the pressure of hydrogen behind the fabric. A figure ahead. A man in crew coveralls, arm extended upward, hand reaching for a mechanism above the walkway. Examine his hand. Fingers spread, straining, the tendons visible in his wrist. Inches from a brass valve handle. One of 14 manually controlled maneuvering valves, used to vent hydrogen for descent. This is Rudolf Sauter. He has seen the glow. He is trying to open the valve to vent hydrogen from cell 4. His hand reaches, fingers curled for the grip. The gap between fingertip and brass handle is no wider than a playing card. He will not reach it in time. The fire behind you is faster than his arm. Look up through the lattice of duralumin above. The axial corridor stretches in both directions. Forward toward the bow, aft toward the fire. Reach up and grip the nearest ring frame joint. The duralumin is cold, the triangular cross-section precise under your fingers. Run your thumb across a rivet head, flush with the surface, no larger than a shirt button. 1 million of these hold the ship together, each placed by hand in the Friedrichshafen Assembly Hall. Between this rivet and the one 500 feet ahead at the bow, 16 gas cells, 33 million cubic feet of hydrogen. The lift that holds 97 people above the ground. Descend the ladder from the axial walkway, rungs cold under your hands. The keel corridor opens below, narrower, darker, the ship's working interior. Hydrogen was always the compromise. Hugo Eckener, the man who built the Zeppelin company, wanted helium. Inert, fireproof, completely safe. The United States held a near monopoly on the gas, produced from natural gas wells in Texas. And the Helium Act of 1925 banned its export. Interior Secretary Harold Ickes blocked every proposed sale to Germany, partly on strategic grounds, partly on anti-Nazi principle. Eckener pleaded his case. Helium would make commercial airship travel completely safe. Without it, every flight was a calculated gamble on hydrogen. The gamble had paid off. 62 successful crossings, not one fire, not one passenger death in the history of commercial Zeppelin flight. The record was flawless. The 63rd crossing is above you now, burning. Step into the keel corridor. The triangular cross-section is barely wider than your shoulders. Aluminum floor grating. Diesel fuel tanks visible below through the mesh. The nearest sleeping hammock hangs from a crossbrace. Touch it. Canvas, a wool blanket folded at one end. A photograph tucked into the frame. Pick it up. A young woman, dark-haired, the image slightly curled from humidity. A name on the back, written in German. 21 hammocks for 61 crew members. They sleep in shifts, 3 watches. The ship is never unmanned. Open the small locker beside the hammock. Personal effects inside. A shaving kit, a packet of cigarettes, a folded letter. Unfold the letter. German handwriting, dated May 1st, 5 days ago. The ink smudged from handling. A woman's hand, careful script. Something about plans for the summer. A trip to the Black Forest. A mention of their son starting school in September. The cigarettes are from Frankfurt. Bought duty-free at the terminal before departure. Rigger Hans Freund, 24. One of 21 trainee crewmen on this flight. His first Atlantic crossing. He is somewhere along this corridor when the fire starts. He will die. The letter in this locker will be returned to his family in a box of effects recovered from the wreckage. Walk forward along the keel. Step over fuel lines. Duck under cross braces. The diesel smell thickens. Crouch beside the fuel tank housing. Steel, cold, condensation beading on the surface. Wipe the condensation away. The fuel gauge reads 3/4 full. 16,000 kilograms of diesel, enough for the 4 engines on the return crossing to Frankfurt, which was fully booked. Tomorrow's passenger list is already posted in the Frankfurt office. 70 passengers, double today's 36. A doorway to the left. The radio room, a small cabin packed with electrical equipment. Lean in. A man at the desk, headphones on, hand on a telegraph key mid-transmission. His face is composed, professional, the expression of routine competence. His last transmission to Lakehurst Tower is mid-word on the telegraph key. You will return to this room. How many of the 61 crew have done this crossing before? And how many are here for the first time? Walk forward. The keel corridor narrows further, then opens at the junction where crew space meets the passenger gondola below. Descend through the hatch. From crew space into passenger space, the aluminum gives way to wood paneling and carpet. The world changes. The promenade stretches in both directions. The long corridor with its slanting windows. New Jersey visible below in the evening light. Step onto the carpet. Press your palm against the window glass. Cold. The pine forests pass 200 feet below. The Lakehurst airfield ahead. The mooring mast is a white spike in the distance. The windows are open. Passengers have been leaning out to watch the approach, cameras in hand, the routine wonder of arriving by air. A man at the portside window. Compact build, athletic, mid-30s. A movie camera in his hand, the lens pointed down at the airfield. Examine the camera. A home movie camera, 8mm, the film reel mid-advance. Joseph Spar. Acrobat and comedian, 32, from Long Island, returning from performing in Europe. The footage will not survive, but his physical instinct will save him. His dog, a German shepherd named Ulla, is kennelled in the cargo hold far below in the bow. He will hang from this window frame and drop 40 feet. He will walk away from this. Ulla will not. Walk aft along the promenade, past open cabin doors, past passengers caught mid-motion, a coat half lifted from a hook, a hat held between 2 hands, the frozen normalcy of arrival. The lounge, starboard side decorated with murals of the great explorers' routes, Magellan, Columbus, Cook, Vasco da Gama. A woman sits in a chair by the window, a book open in her lap. She's reading. Not looking out the window, not watching the landing. Margaret Mather, American author. Aware of the delay, but unconcerned. She will be one of the last passengers pulled from the wreckage. She will write that she remained in her seat because she did not believe what was happening could really be happening. Walk past the murals, roots painted on the walls of a ship that will make its own kind of history tonight. A man standing apart from the passengers, not at a window, not sitting. Hands behind his back, watching the room. Scan the lounge and find him. Older than most passengers, early 50s, wearing a Zeppelin officer's uniform, but no insignia of command. Approach. Touch the sleeve of his jacket. The fabric is regulation, Zeppelin, reader eye. But the rank tabs are wrong for a passenger and right for a captain. Check the breast pocket. A folded note, the edge visible. Pull it free. Handwriting. Press talking points for the landing. A prepared statement. Captain Ernst Lehmann, 51. Former commander of the Hindenburg, on this flight as an observer. He told reporters the night before, "It will be all right. He will not survive. Burned over most of his body. He will walk off the field and die the next day." His last words to Commander Rosendahl, "I don't understand it." The Hindenburg filled with helium instead of hydrogen. The same ship, the same flight, the same thunderstorm. The static spark still jumps between skin and frame. The leaked gas in the tail still ignites. Except helium does not ignite. Nothing burns. The passengers land at 7:30. The 1937 season continues. But Harold Ickes said no. The helium stayed in Texas. The hydrogen stayed in the cells. Walk forward through the passenger section, past the dining room set for the final dinner service, past white tablecloths, past Bavarian china, past the life that existed aboard this ship. Descend the near vertical ladder. Cold rungs. The gondola hangs in open air beneath the hull. The evening breeze comes through the forward windows. The control car is compact. Instruments on every surface. The forward windscreen showing the airfield below and the mooring mast ahead. The gas board, a panel of 14 gauges showing the inflation level of each hydrogen cell, each with a manual valve control. Tap the altimeter glass with your fingernail. The needle reads approximately 200 feet. The ship is nose up. The tail is lower than the bow. The man at the forward windows, mid-40s, commanding posture, hands braced against the window frame, leaning forward to watch the mooring mast. Examine his face, focused, intent, the expression of a man performing a task he has done 10 times before. Captain Max Pruss, 46, commanding this flight. 10 Hindenburg crossings behind him. He ordered the sharp left turn at 7:09 when the ground crew was not ready. He ordered the landing ropes dropped at 7:21. 300 feet of manila hemp, wet from the rain. Grip the elevator wheel, heavy brass, cool. The resistance of cables running 804 feet to the tail fins pulls against your hand. Turn it, or try to. The mechanism holds. Full nose-up input. The elevator man has been fighting to keep the ship level. The pitch indicator beside the wheel tells the story. The ship is stern heavy, the tail dropping. An imbalance the crew has been fighting for the last 10 minutes. Check the ballast log clipped to the bulkhead. 6 entries in the last 4 minutes. 1,100 pounds of water dropped from the stern to raise the tail. The stern was heavy because gas cell 4 had been losing hydrogen. Less hydrogen means less lift. The crew compensated by dropping water ballast. They treated the symptom. The cause, a leaking cell, was feeding hydrogen into the space where it would ignite. The man at the rudder wheel. Broad-shouldered, steady hands. The wheel turned 5 degrees to starboard. Albert Samt, chief helmsman, the most experienced dirigible helmsman in Germany. His eyes are on the compass, not the windows. He navigates by instrument, trusting the captain for visual direction. Lean toward the forward windscreen. Look down at the landing field. More than 200 men stand in formation below. Navy and civilian personnel arranged in 2 lines radiating from the mooring mast like the spokes of a wheel. Their heads are tilted up, hands ready for the ropes, each face a separate upturned oval against the wet grass, each one watching the largest object they have ever seen descend toward them. Scan the edge of the formation. A cluster of equipment, cables, a man with a microphone, Herbert Morrison and his engineer Charles Nelson. WLS Chicago. The recording equipment is running. Morrison is mid-sentence into the microphone. His recording is not live. Nobody will hear, "Oh, the humanity," as it happens. The transcription disc will be broadcast the next day. At this instant, Morrison is saying something about what a sight it is. Step back from the window, stand in the center of the control car and turn slowly. The instruments surround you. Compass, inclinometer, clock, stopped at 7:25, like everything else in this frozen world. The clock face is brass, the hands black, the numerals in the German style. Below the clock, the barograph, a pen tracing atmospheric pressure on a rotating drum, the line descending steadily as the ship dropped altitude over the last hour. Read the line backward. The ship was at 3,000 feet over Long Island, 2,000 over central New Jersey, 1,000 as it began the approach, 600 as it circled Lakehurst, waiting for the thunderstorms to clear, 200 now. The barograph is a diary of the descent, and the descent was a diary of the delay. Every hour the ship spent waiting for weather clearance was an hour closer to the atmospheric conditions that would destroy it. The barograph pen has stopped mid-stroke. The atmospheric pressure at 200 feet over Lakehurst on the evening of May 6, 1937, is recorded here in a line of black ink on white paper. The last meteorological observation the Hindenburg will ever make. The nearest engine telegraph. Touch the handle. Brass, warm from the ambient engine vibration. The pointer is set to slow ahead. 4 engine telegraphs. 1 for each of the 1,050 horsepower Daimler-Benz diesels hanging in gondolas below the hull. 4 controlled combustion engines suspended beneath 7 million cubic feet of hydrogen. The only fires permitted aboard this ship. A ship that bans a candle in its kitchen runs 4 diesel infernos day and night. The glow behind you fades, not extinguished, reversed. The orange light withdraws into the tail, shrinks to a point, and vanishes. The control car dissolves around you. The altimeter needle swings backward. The evening sky brightens. Time is moving in the wrong direction. The ship rebuilds itself. Fabric reknits across exposed skeleton. Fire unburns. Hydrogen returns to its cells. The tail lifts. the stern heavy droop straightening as the gas that leaked flows backward through the tear it made, the tear closing behind it, the cell wall whole again. The coastline below pulls away. New Jersey retreats eastward. The ship rises, backs across the sky. The Atlantic appears beneath you, grey and vast, then shrinks. And below you now is a city, sunlit, spread out, a harbour, ships at anchor, streets visible in the kind of detail only altitude reveals. Boston, noon. The ship's shadow on the water is longer than any vessel in the harbour below it. The shadow of a machine 3 times the length of a Boeing 747, cruising over a major city at the speed of an automobile. The smell of roast beef. The clink of cutlery. Conversation in German and English. Laughter. May 6th, 1937. Noon. The Hindenburg at 650 feet over Boston. Lunch is being served. The passengers have 3 days of Atlantic crossing behind them and 7 hours of living ahead. The moment locks. The dining room at noon. Step in. White linen tablecloths, Bavarian china catching the midday light through the slanted promenade windows. The windows show Boston below. The harbour, the ships, the streets sharp in the midday light. Touch the nearest tablecloth. Starched, white, heavy linen. 36 settings. Every glass in place. Lift the plate from the nearest setting. Bavarian china. Heavier than you expect for an airship. The DZR crest on the rim. Deutsche Zeppelin Reederei. Turn it over. The maker's mark on the base, and beneath the company name, a smaller mark, the swastika. The Hindenburg flies under the Nazi flag. The swastikas on the tail fins are 45 feet tall. Set the plate down. Examine the wineglass beside it. Aluminum, not crystal. The DZR crest etched into the base. The Riesling inside is still and cold. Hugo Eckener, the man who built the Zeppelin company, despises the regime. He tried to run for president against Hindenburg in 1932. Goebbels banned his name from German newspapers, but Eckener cannot stop the Nazis from using his airship. The Hindenburg is their greatest propaganda instrument, and the DZR crest on every plate reminds you who owns this sky. A man moving between tables. Mid-40s, steward's uniform immaculate. His hands adjust a wine bottle in its stand. Examine those hands, steady, precise. The hands of a man who has served thousands of meals at altitude. Heinrich Kubis, 44. The world's most experienced airship steward. He invented the practice of serving full meals aloft. He served on Zeppelins during the Great War, carrying bombs, not passengers. He has seen hydrogen burn before. In 7 hours, he will throw passengers out of windows to save their lives. Right now, he is adjusting a wine bottle. Walk along the tables, past place settings, past conversations held mid-word, past the elaborate normalcy of lunch aboard a hydrogen airship. A table near the windows. A woman with 3 children, the youngest fidgeting, the oldest sitting upright. Examine the woman's face. Early 40s, dark hair composed. A mother managing 3 children in a public dining room. Irene Doner, 42, from Mexico City, traveling with Werner, 8, Walter, 10, Irene Jr., 14. Her husband Herman waits in New York. He sent his family by Hindenburg because it was the safest way to cross. Irene will die. Irene Jr. will die. Werner and Walter will survive, thrown from windows by their mother in the final seconds. Turn from the table. The children's faces still, the mother's hands still. Everything held in the amber of noon. A one-way ticket cost $400. The Hindenburg had never made a profit. The German government subsidized every crossing as propaganda, flying the swastika across the Atlantic. The 1937 season was supposed to change this. The return flight tomorrow carried 70 passengers, double today's 36. The Graf Zeppelin, Eckener's older ship, had made 590 flights without a fatality. That safety record was the reason 36 people were calmly eating lunch inside a bag of hydrogen. Step through the doorway. A smaller room, quieter. Desks against the slanted windows, stationery provided with the Hindenburg letterhead. The scratch of pens replaced by the silence of pens that were scratching a moment ago. Pick up the postcard from the nearest desk. Hindenburg letterhead on one side, a photograph of the ship. Turn it over. Handwriting, neat in English, an address in New York. Crossing smooth, arriving tonight. Read the date, May 6th, 1937. The stamp in the corner is already franked, ready for the Lakehurst Postal Service. Check the cargo manifest pinned to the wall beside the steward's station. 1,002 pounds of mail aboard this ship, stored in the bow. The mail will survive better than many passengers. The postal bags in the cargo hold are among the last things to burn. The bow section, where the mail is stored, is the last part to hit the ground. The US Postal Service will deliver the singed letters. Some will sell at auction for thousands, the char marks becoming a certificate of authenticity. Pick up a blank sheet of stationery from the desk. Heavyweight paper, the Hindenburg letterhead in navy blue, the route printed on the paper, Frankfurt to Lakehurst, crossing the Atlantic via the northern route past Greenland and Newfoundland. 63 crossings before this one, 62 successful. All on hydrogen, not one passenger fatality in the history of commercial Zeppelin flight. A man at the far desk, fountain pen in hand, notebook open, writing quickly. A professional's focus. Lean over his shoulder. Read the notebook. Notes in German, observations about the crossing, descriptions of the passengers, material for an article. Leonhard Adelt, journalist, writing for a Cologne newspaper. His wife Gertrude sits beside him at the next desk. Both Adelts will survive. Leonhard will publish one of the most detailed survivor narratives. The article he is writing now will become his notes for a very different story. What would these letters say if the writers knew what was coming? A man and woman at the window desk, both in their 60s. The man writes steadily. The woman watches Boston pass below. Reach across and slide the letter toward you. Heavy paper, personal stationery, not Hindenburg letterhead, the weight of someone who carries their own. Read his handwriting. A diplomat's trained hand, controlled, even. The letters identical, whether he is writing the first word or the 50th. Peter Bellin, 62, retired American diplomat, traveling with his wife. He has already written that this is the most civilized form of travel ever devised. Read the final sentence on the page. It ends mid-thought, the pen still resting at the word he was forming when time stopped. The word is incomplete. He will finish it in New York. Both Berlins will be pulled from the wreckage together, alive. Slide the letter back. The pen is still at the incomplete word. There are things you know that he does not. You could warn him. Nothing in this world moves except you. Of the 36 passengers aboard, most were repeat customers. The Hindenburg's passenger list read like a directory of transatlantic regulars. Diplomats, journalists, business people who had discovered that 3 days in a floating hotel was preferable to 5 days on an ocean liner. The ship offered what no other aircraft could: space. The promenade windows, the dining room, the writing desks, a shower, a piano, until this season. The passenger spaces occupied a fraction of the ship's volume. A gondola slung beneath the hull like a cabin beneath a balloon. But they offered more room per passenger than any aircraft would provide for another 70 years. Descend the narrow stairway, A deck to B deck. The carpet gives way to linoleum. The passenger world gives way to the working world. Step into the kitchen. Compact aluminum surfaces. The electric stove is silent, a coil glowing faintly. The element caught mid-heat, the orange light steady and still. No flame, no gas, no combustion. Touch the stove element. Warm, no open flames anywhere on this ship except the sealed smoking room. Even the kitchen is all electric. A ship that bans a candle runs on 7 million cubic feet of hydrogen. Open the kitchen cabinet. Aluminum plates stacked inside, each stamped DZR, lighter than china, but shaped to look like it. Lift one, barely a few ounces. Compare it to the Bavarian china upstairs. The plates the passengers eat from are real china, a luxury allowed despite the weight. Check the cutlery drawer, aluminum forks, aluminum knives. Even the salt shakers are aluminum. The Blüthner baby grand piano, duralumin and yellow pigskin, 356 pounds instead of 700, was removed for the 1937 season to make room for more passenger cabins. Chef Xavier Meyer has cooked aboard since the maiden voyage in March 1936. Roast beef, vegetables, soup, fruit, ocean liner dining in a kitchen the size of a closet, on an electric stove, with aluminum everything. Meyer will escape through the kitchen hatch, walk to the far wall. A single door, heavy, sealed, marked crew only in German. Press your hand against it. Feel the temperature difference. The crew side is colder. A draft comes through the gap at the bottom. This door is the only connection between passenger and crew spaces. Everything else is sealed. If fire enters the keel corridor, the passengers have no route to the crew's escape hatches. This door is the choke point between survival and death. Step through the door. The passenger world vanishes, aluminum and wire, and the naked structure of the ship. The keel corridor stretches into darkness. The captain's quarters. Enter. A small cabin, a bunk against one wall, a desk beneath a porthole. The porthole shows the ground 650 feet below. Touch the bunk. Regulation blanket, tightly made, the discipline of a career airship officer. Spartan compared to A deck above. No linen, no china, no luxury. Just function. Open the chart case on the desk. Unroll the navigation chart. The Northern Atlantic route spreads before you. Trace the route with your finger. Frankfurt, May 3rd departure. The Channel, the Atlantic, Greenland, Newfoundland. Follow the pencil marks. Daily progress noted in precise German handwriting. May 4th over the Channel. May 5th over Greenland. May 6th landfall at Newfoundland. Noon over Boston. Expected arrival at Lakehurst, 6 in the morning. The actual arrival is still pending. Headwinds push them 12 hours late, then thunderstorms over Lakehurst. The delay will kill them. The original 6 a.m. landing would have been in calm, dry morning air. No thunderstorms, no atmospheric electricity, no static charge on the skin. The 12-hour delay pushed the landing into unstable evening atmosphere. The thunderstorms that forced them to circle charged the air with electricity that the wet landing ropes would ground through the frame, but not the skin. Open the ship's log beside the charts, leather-bound, entries in German every 30 minutes, meticulous. Read the last entry. Weather conditions, altitude, engine performance, hydrogen cell pressures. Run your finger down the cell pressure column. Cells 1 through 16, all reading normal except cell 4, which shows a gradual decline over the last 6 hours. Scan the cabin for personal effects. Pruss's cabin, not Eckener's. But a photograph on the bulkhead stops you. Examine it. A group portrait, officers in Zeppelin uniform, an older man at the center, dignified, commanding. Hugo Eckener, the man who built the Zeppelin company, who flew the Graf Zeppelin around the world, who campaigned for American helium. He is not on this flight. He refused to fly the 1937 season, citing the risk of hydrogen and political pressure from Berlin. His warnings sit in files in Friedrichshafen. His plea to the Americans sits in State Department archives. His absence from this cabin is the loudest thing in the room. Climb back through the junction. Keel to passenger space. The aluminum gives way to linen-covered walls. The cabin corridor stretches ahead. Walk the corridor. Doors on both sides, each one a 5x6 aluminum cubicle. Cabin numbers in brass. Touch a door handle. Cool. Lightweight. The latch mechanism is simple. Privacy is a curtain on the inside, not a lock. 25 double-berth cabins for 36 passengers. Some travelling alone, some in pairs. The donor family occupies 2 adjacent cabins. Push open the door to B18. The curtain is drawn back. A child's world inside. Pick up the toy from the lower bunk. A small, carved wooden horse. The paint worn at the mane where a thumb rubs. Open the suitcase on the floor. Half unpacked. Children's clothes folded beside adult dresses. Packed in Mexico City. Carried across the Atlantic. A family photograph tucked into the mirror frame. Pull it free. Hermann Döhner, the father, standing in front of a building in New York, smiling, waiting for his family. Hermann chose the Hindenburg because it was the safest crossing available. He will lose his wife and eldest daughter tonight. His 2 youngest sons will arrive at the hospital, burned and orphaned of their mother. The carved horse on the bunk will be among the effects returned to him. Press your ear against the linen-covered wall. The engine drone is audible, a low, constant vibration that passengers describe as soothing. The wash basin beneath the porthole is aluminum, with running water from the ballast tanks. The same water being dropped from the stern right now to compensate for the leaking hydrogen in cell 4. Every comfort on this ship doubles as an engineering variable. The water you wash with is the ballast that keeps the ship level. Open the porthole. The air outside is cold, salt-tinged, carrying 3 days of Atlantic humidity. You feel it on your face the moment the glass swings open. 650 feet below, Boston Harbor spreads in miniature. The fishing boats, the freight ships, the ferries. A biplane is caught mid-pass below the ship, its wingspan no wider than a single frame of the Hindenburg's belly, frozen in the act of crossing the shadow. From the pilot's angle, look down at where he must be. The Hindenburg fills the sky above him, a silver ceiling 804 feet long, its shadow swallowing the harbour beneath his landing wheels. He flies 4 passengers. The ship above him flies 36, plus 61 crew, plus 1,002 pounds of mail. 2 forms of flight, separated by 500 feet of altitude and an entire philosophy of engineering. The biplane's future is unlimited. The airship's future is 7 hours long. Read the manifest posted in the corridor. 36 passengers, 61 crew, names in German and English. The return flight manifest is already posted in Frankfurt. 70 passengers for tomorrow. The 1937 season opening in full. Touch the paper. Thin, typed. The bureaucratic record of who was aboard and when. The cabin walls blur. The noon light dims through the porthole and keeps dimming. Afternoon accelerates through the slanted windows in a rush of changing light, bright to gold to grey. The ship descends around you. Altitude dropping. Boston retreating south. The coast swings beneath. Long Island stretches south. Manhattan is visible for a moment, the towers catching afternoon light, and then gone. The pine barrens of New Jersey appear. Thunderheads build across the western sky, heavy and grey, and then they clear. Rain falls and stops. The sun drops towards the western horizon. The shadow of the ship lengthens on the ground below. Wet grass, engine noise louder, approaching the ground now. Voices below, hundreds of them. A mooring mast catching the last light like a white needle against green. May 6th, 1937. 7:15 in the evening. The Hindenburg at 200 feet. Beginning its final approach to Lakehurst Naval Air Station. The landing ropes are about to drop. The ground crew is in formation. 10 minutes remain. The moment locks. Step onto the field. Wet grass underfoot. The rain has passed, but the air is thick with moisture, heavy and close. The pine barrens ring the airfield, dark green against the grey evening sky. An ozone tang sits in the air, the residual charge of a recently cleared thunderstorm. Look up. The ship fills the sky above you. 804 feet of silver, descending. The 4 engine gondolas protrude from the belly, each propeller caught mid-rotation. The blades at different angles, the asymmetric star of an arrested spin. Landing ropes coiled at the bow. The Hindenburg at 200 feet, seen from directly below. The silver fabric catches the late afternoon light. The ship's underside is a smooth belly of doped cotton, the mooring coupling a dark circle at the bow. The swastikas on the tail fins, black against white against red, are the largest things on this airfield. The ship's shadow stretches across the wet field beneath your feet, longer than any structure in Lakehurst. Walk among the ground crew. More than 200 men stand frozen in 2 lines, radiating from the mast like wheel spokes. Examine the nearest man, navy uniform, wet, young. His head is tilted back, watching the ship, hands ready for the ropes. Navy personnel and civilian workers. Lieutenant Benjamin May commands from atop the mast. Commander Charles Rosendahl cleared the landing at 7:08 after the weather improved. The most experienced American airship officer alive. Find Rosendahl on the field. A senior officer, standing apart from the formation, binoculars raised, watching the ship's approach. Examine the binoculars. Navy issue, the leather case worn smooth by years of use, the strap frayed at the buckle. Check his uniform. The ribbons on his chest include one from the USS Shenandoah, 1925. Rosendahl survived the crash of the Shenandoah. The airship tore apart in a squall over Ohio. He rode a section of the wreckage to the ground after it broke apart at 3,000 feet. 14 men died. Rosendahl became America's most vocal advocate for rigid airships, and now he stands on this field watching another one approach in unstable air. He cleared this landing. The weather had improved. The weather was not the problem. Walk to the edge of the formation, past the lines of men, past wet ropes coiled on the ground, toward a cluster of equipment near the field's perimeter. A man with a microphone, early 30s, suit and hat, standing beside a recording apparatus on a folding table. Examine the equipment. A Presto transcription disc recorder. The disc spins, the cutting stylus tracing a spiral groove in the acetate surface. Herbert Morrison, 32, reporter for WLS Chicago. His engineer Charles Nelson stands beside the equipment. This is supposed to be a routine human interest story. The first anniversary of Hindenburg service. The opening of the 1937 season. Morrison is recording, not broadcasting. The disc will be played on WLS the next day. What makes this landing different from the 62 before it? Rise from the field, pass through the hull skin, through structure, into the cavernous bow section. The bow interior opens like a cathedral's apse. Duralumin ribs converge at the nose. Step in. The mooring coupling sits at the center. A heavy steel mechanism, cold under your palm. The device that will connect to the mast below. The ship's anchor point. 12 crew members are stationed around the coupling. Their job: manage the forward landing ropes. Grip the nearest landing rope. Manila hemp, wet, heavy. Over 300 feet coiled on the floor. Feel the water in the rope, soaked from the rain, the hemp fibers dark and swollen, dripping. When these ropes touch the wet ground below, they will electrically ground the ship's duralumin frame. But the outer fabric cover is not bonded to the frame. It is separated by non-conductive rami cords. The frame grounds. The skin does not. The difference in electrical potential between skin and frame is a spark waiting to happen. Look down through the grating beneath the coupling. Cargo storage visible below. Climb down the access ladder. Step into the cargo hold. Dark, packed with trunks and postal bags. Open the nearest postal bag. Stiff canvas, stenciled United States mail. Letters packed tightly inside. 1,002 pounds of mail. Some will be delivered, singed but readable. The US Postal Service does not stop for fire. Also here, Joseph Spar's German shepherd, Ulla, kennelled in a crate. Spar visited her twice during the crossing, walking the full length of the keel corridor to reach the bow. When the bow finally drops, a burst of flame will shoot forward through the hull. 9 of these 12 bow crew will die. Ulla will die. The male will survive. Climb the ladder back up. Through the bow, into the keel corridor. Walk aft toward the engine access. Descend the near vertical ladder. The hull opens below your feet. The gondola hangs in open air, the ground visible far below through the access hatch. Step into the gondola. Cramped, hot. The 16-cylinder Daimler-Benz fills most of the space. arrested mid-idle, touch the engine casing, hot metal. The last vibration is locked in the block. 1,050 horsepower caught mid-stroke in a pod, barely larger than a telephone booth. The engines burn diesel, not gasoline, a deliberate safety choice. Diesel has a higher flash point, but these engines are the only source of combustion aboard. 4 controlled fires hanging beneath 7 million cubic feet of hydrogen. A man squeezed against the far wall, mid-30s, coveralls stained with diesel, his hands locked on the throttle control, knuckles white. His face shows concentration and heat fatigue, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool evening. Richard Colmer, 32, one of the most experienced engine mechanics in the Zeppelin service. He will survive. When the fire passes over his gondola, he will climb down the landing wheel strut and drop to the ground. Look through the gondola's open access hatch. The ground is 200 feet below. Wet grass, the landing field, the formation of men. The propeller blade nearest the hatch is frozen mid-rotation, the leading edge nicked and polished from 3 days of Atlantic air. Each blade catches the evening light at a different angle. Run your finger along the blade edge. Cold aluminum, smooth. The aerodynamic profile, precise. This propeller has pushed the Hindenburg across the Atlantic 17 times. It has never pushed the ship away from a fire. Grip the engine telegraph handle. Brass, warm from the engine's heat. The pointer is set to slow ahead. Follow the telegraph cable with your eye. It runs up through the gondola ceiling, through the hull, to the control car where Pruss gives orders. Check the telegraph log clipped beside the instrument. 3 speed changes in the last 4 minutes. Full ahead, slow ahead, idle, then back to slow ahead. The log tells the story of the approach. The ship circling, the delayed landing, Pruss maneuvering for the mast. The exhaust from these engines is vented downward and away from the hull. In turbulent air, exhaust gases could theoretically be pushed upward toward leaked hydrogen. An early theory for the ignition, most investigators now discount it. The more likely cause, the static spark between skin and frame after the ropes grounded. Open the maintenance log hanging from a hook beside the instrument panel. Entries in Colmer's handwriting. Daily checks, the last dated May 6th, 0800 hours. All systems nominal. The mundane record of a machine that was never the problem. Climb the ladder. Back into the keel. The heat of the engine fades. The cooler air of the corridor ahead. Walk aft along the keel corridor. The corridor narrows, then opens into the stern section. The tail fins are visible ahead. The structure densifies around you. Run your hand along the structural bracing. The densest engineering in the ship, where the 4 massive fins attached to the hull ring frames. The fins are fabric over duralumin, held rigid by internal wire bracing. Grip a wire. Taut under your fingers, the structural load of the entire tail assembly held in this single strand. Press your ear against it. Silence. But the tension is palpable. The wire rigid as a tuning fork struck and stopped. The rudder is visible through the structure. Mid-deflection, angled 5 degrees to starboard. The ship is correcting its heading for the final approach. Press your palm against gas cell 4 from this end. The fabric is softer here than amidships. The reduced pressure you read in the ballast log, made physical under your hand. The cell is partially deflated. The hydrogen that leaked from it somewhere above you now, in the space between skin and skeleton. Crouch beside the auxiliary gas valve control mounted on the keel frame. A brass wheel 12 inches across, connected by a cable running upward through the hull to gas cell 4's manual vent. Turn the wheel. It resists. The valve is already partially open, consistent with the crew's attempts to manage the cell's pressure loss. The indicator beside the valve shows the cell at 78% capacity. Compare that to the cells on either side, cells 3 and 5, both reading 94%. The 16% difference in cell 4 is the leak. The lost hydrogen is somewhere above you, mixing with the air between the cell wall and the outer skin. Hydrogen is 14 times lighter than air. It rises. It collects at the top of the hull above the axial corridor, in the space where the outer cover meets the uppermost ring frames. The space where the fire began. Lean through the access hatch to the lower fin. A backup helm position manned during takeoff and landing. Smaller versions of the main elevator and rudder wheels. A communication tube connecting to the bridge. Touch the communication tube. Cold brass, the mouthpiece shaped for shouting, the medium of command in an 804-foot ship. The doped fabric you touched in the tail, solid rocket fuel painted onto cotton. After the fire, investigators focused on hydrogen as the primary accelerant. A later theory argued the doping compound was the fire source. Both contributed. The hydrogen provided the initial invisible fire. The doped fabric provided the visible orange inferno. What the ground crew and cameras saw burning was largely the skin, not the gas. Walk forward along the keel. The stern recedes behind you. The corridor narrows to a man's width. A doorway ahead on the left. Lean into the radio room. A small cabin packed with equipment. The Telefunken transmitter fills one wall. Vacuum tubes glowing orange. Touch the telegraph key. Brass, worn smooth by thousands of transmissions. The contact makes a faint click in the still air. The receiver is mid-crackle. A burst of static caught in the speaker. The waveform of atmospheric interference from the thunderstorms that passed an hour ago, held in the circuitry like a photograph of sound. Open the radio log, leather-bound, entries in Speck's handwriting, every 15 to 30 minutes across the full crossing. Flip to today's entries. May 6th, weather reports through the morning, position updates over Newfoundland, the first reports of thunderstorms over Lakehurst. Trace the entries forward. 4 p.m. Thunderstorms confirmed. 5 p.m. Holding pattern. 7:08. Clearance to land. 7:11. Second approach begun. The last entry is mid-word. Speck was writing when time stopped. The pen trails ink across the page. Speck joined the Zeppelin service in 1923. 14 years of flying. He served on the Graf Zeppelin, made over 100 ocean crossings. One of the most experienced radio operators in aviation. He will survive by smashing his window and jumping. His last routine message, confirmed passenger count and estimated arrival time. The bureaucratic final words of the airship era. Pick up the slip of paper beside Speck's elbow. Handwritten. Received mid-Atlantic, a personal message relayed through the radio network. His wife's handwriting. Something about dinner plans, about the summer, about a life that assumes routine crossings and routine returns. set it back beside his elbow. He will read it again in Frankfurt. He will fly home on an airplane, lean close to the receiver. The static is frozen mid-burst, a snapshot of atmospheric energy. The charge pattern preserved in the speaker tells you what the sky above Lakehurst holds. Electricity, residual and potent, the air between ship and ground alive with potential difference. The same electrical energy caught in this receiver's speaker has built between the ship's skin and frame. The same charge, different path, different consequence. The air above Lakehurst is electrically alive. The ship is flying through it. The landing ropes will ground one conductor. The other will remain charged. The radiostatic surges, becomes a roar. The ship lurches around you. The corridor tilts. The gas cells above press down. The air changes colour, grey to amber to orange. Behind you, the stern structure you walked through minutes ago begins to glow. The orange light spreads forward along the hull the way sunrise fills a cathedral. Not slow, not fast, inevitable. The heat arrives before the light. The sound arrives last, a low rushing noise, like a furnace door opening in a room too large to contain it. The tail drops. The deck angles beneath your feet, 15 degrees, 20, steeper. The stern falling, the bow rising, the ship pivoting on its own centre of mass. 10 minutes compressed to a breath. The landing ropes, the ground crew grabbing hold, the ship descending, the static building, the spark, the glow, the fire. The fabric is tearing, not with scissors, with heat. The sound of a ship coming apart from the inside. May 6th, 1937, 7:25 and 8 seconds. The stern is fully engulfed. The tail has hit the ground. The nose points skyward at 30 degrees. 15 seconds remain. The moment locks. Stand on the wet field, 100 feet from the burning stern. The radiant heat reaches your face from here, a dry, pressing warmth against the evening moisture, the temperature of hydrogen combustion crossing the distance like a wall. The stern is open. The outer fabric is gone, consumed, and what remains is the skeleton of the ship, the duralumin framework exposed and glowing cherry red against the grey sky. Ring frames still hold their circular shape, even as the longitudinal girders between them begin to buckle. The geometry of the Zeppelin is visible for the first and only time. Triangular trusses, hexagonal bracing nodes. The craft of German engineering illuminated by the fire that is taking it apart. Inside the exposed skeleton, individual gas cells hang in different states of destruction. Some are intact and white. Some burn with pale blue hydrogen flame, almost invisible against the sky. Some have collapsed into dark, empty shapes. Orange fabric fire at the edges, bright and visible. The blue hydrogen flame and the orange fabric fire. Two different chemistries, two different colours, layered in the same skeleton. The heat is dry, intense, radiating outward. What falls to the ground is not hydrogen. What falls is burning fabric, burning diesel fuel, and molten aluminum. Step forward. The tail section is mid-descent. The aft ring frames dropping at an angle, trailing fire. The vertical stabilizer crumpling sideways as it meets resistance. Examine the leading edge of the collapse. The tail section has met the ground. A burst of flame caught mid-travel through the interior, the shockwave of ignition preserved in the geometry of the fire. The remaining hydrogen has been displaced forward by the structural collapse, compressed like air in a bellows. The ship's angle is steep, the nose high, the stern low, the fulcrum somewhere amidships. The remaining forward hydrogen cells still hold lift, still hold the bow up, while the stern has already died. An 804-foot lever, caught mid-pivot on its own center of mass. Look across the field. The ground crew is mid-scatter. 200 men frozen in chaotic motion, each caught at a different stage of the same realization. Find the nearest man. A Navy sailor, mid-stride, his head turned back over his shoulder to look at the fire. His mouth is open. Follow his sightline back to the ship. The angle between his eyes and the burning stern tells you what he already knows. The fire is 8 seconds old. The tail is dropping. The ship is coming down on top of them. Scan forward, past the men running away. Some are caught mid-stride toward the fire, not away from it, already in motion to help before the wreckage has touched the ground. 35 people will die. 13 passengers, 22 crew. 1 ground crew worker, Alan Hagerman, 43, a civilian, will be caught under falling wreckage. 62 people will survive. The survival rate is 64%. The Hindenburg disaster is remembered as total destruction. It was not. Walk across the wet grass. Burning fragments hang in the air around you. Fabric scraps, molten aluminum droplets, each one caught mid-descent. The heat is fierce this close to the wreckage, towards the recording position near the field's perimeter. Morrison's face has changed. The professional interest is gone. His mouth is open, the microphone trembling in his hand. Reach for the microphone stand. Feel the tremor in it, the vibration of the ground, the air pressure from the fire, transmitted through the metal into your fingertips. The transcription disc is stopped mid-rotation. The cutting stylus traces the spiral, recording every word, every gasp, every sob. It's burst into flames. The words are caught mid-formation in his throat. The sentence that'll play in every newsreel theatre in America within 48 hours. His engineer Nelson stands frozen beside the equipment, one hand on the disc recorder, the other reaching for Morrison's shoulder. A gesture of human contact in the middle of a catastrophe. Walk to the nearest newsreel camera. A bulky 35mm camera on a tripod. The film magazine stopped mid-advance. The mechanical gate open on a single frame of the disaster. Place your hands on the tripod legs. Feel the slight vibration of the motor. The cameraman beside it has not moved. His eye is at the viewfinder, his hand still on the crank. He is one of 4 camera crews on this field, 4 of them, plus Morrison's recording disc. Lean into the viewfinder. The frame holds what the camera sees. The burning stern, the descending bow, the men running across the field. This footage will be in motion picture theatres within days. Every city in America. Then abroad. The R-101 crashed in France in 1930, killing 48, more than the Hindenburg. The USS Akron went down in the Atlantic in 1933, killing 73, twice the death toll here tonight. Both disasters killed more people. Neither was filmed. They are barely remembered. Touch the film canister in the camera bag beside the tripod. This canister, and the 3 others like it across this field, plus the audio disc Morrison is still recording into. These are the objects that end the airship era. Not the hydrogen, not the spark, the image. After tonight, no paying passenger will ever board a hydrogen airship again. The technology does not fail because it's unsafe. It fails because it is seen being unsafe, once by everyone, in theatres and on radio, before the wreckage is cold. Rise from the field. Pass upward through heat and smoke, through the hull's burning skin, into A-deck. The passenger promenade. The ship has lurched, and the passengers are just beginning to understand. Step onto A-deck. The deck is tilted, 6, maybe 8 degrees, the bow rising, the stern falling. Objects are mid-slide across the floor. A dinner plate is mid-air, launched from the dining table toward the far wall, still a foot from impact. A vase lies on its side, a crack spiderwebbing up from the base. A single fragment arrested in the air, an inch from the rim. A book is open on the floor, pages spread, the spine cracked. Nothing is where it was 10 seconds ago. Nothing has reached where it was going. Touch the floor. Feel the angle under your palm, the stern dropping, the bow rising, gravity shifting beneath the ship. The electricity has failed. The lights are out. The corridor is lit by orange light from the stern, bright and steady. A man at the portside window, Joseph Sparr. His camera is gone, dropped or abandoned. His hands grip the window frame, knuckles white. Grip the window frame beside him. Feel the vibration of the ship through the wood. The structural members twisting, the fabric tearing, the hum of an airframe coming apart. Examine his posture. He is not panicking. He is calculating. The distance to the ground, the angle of descent, the timing of the drop. He is a trained acrobat. He knows what 40 feet feels like. He knows how to land. He will hang from this window frame, wait for the ship to descend closer to the ground, and drop. He will survive with minor injuries. His dog Ulla is in the cargo hold at the bow, the farthest point from where he stands, the length of our entire ship away. He cannot reach her. The bow is the last thing burning. Ulla will not survive. Walk aft along the tilting deck. Uphill now, toward the fire, toward the stern. Objects litter the tilting floor around your feet. A shoe, a handbag, a child's toy, each stopped mid-slide. Irene Donor. Near the windows, her 3 children around her, the deck tilting beneath them, the fire approaching from behind. She is making the decision. Werner is 8. Walter is 10. Irene Jr. is 14. The ground is below, the fire is behind. Examine her hands. One grips Walter's arm, the other reaches for Werner, pulling them toward the window. She will throw or push her children from the window as the ship nears the ground. Werner and Walter will survive with burns. Irene Jr. will die from her burns. Irene herself will die. A mother pushing her children from a burning airship. No camera captures this. No microphone records it. It happens in the orange light inside a collapsing hull, witnessed by no one who survives to describe it fully. Press against the promenade window. It opens outward. Cold New Jersey air presses through the opening, the ground visible below, burning wreckage falling past the opening. The windows were designed for sightseeing. They open for ventilation. They were never intended as emergency exits. There are no doors leading to safety from A-deck. The windows are the only way out. The passengers who understand this will live. The passengers who search for doors, who wait for instructions, who follow the procedures of a world that still makes sense. They will not. Walk through the darkened corridor, lit only by fire, the floor angled, the walls mid-deformation, the structure caught between its designed shape and the shape the fire is forcing upon it. Push through the first door, heavy, spring-loaded. It closes behind you before the second door can open. Press your hand against the second door. Feel the air pressure difference. The smoking room beyond is pressurized slightly above ambient. The air pushing outward against your palm. The airlock. The barrier between the hydrogen-filled ship and the only room aboard where combustion is permitted. One door must close before the other opens. The principle is simple. The engineering is absolute. Push through the second door. Step into the smoking room, sealed, pressurized, the air slightly stale from recirculation. Find the lighter. A standard cigarette lighter, chained to a table like a pen at a bank. Pick it up. Feel the weight of the chain. Fire on a chain inside a hydrogen ship. The ashtray beside it is full of cigarette ends. 3 days of Atlantic crossing. 3 days of passengers lighting cigarettes inside a vessel filled with 7 million cubic feet of hydrogen. Evidence of supreme engineering confidence. The smoking room represents the final expression of Zeppelin's safety design. They were so certain of their pressurization system, their airlocks, their monitoring protocols, that they built a room for fire inside a bomb. And they were right. The fire came from outside, from a spark between skin and frame, from an electrical potential the designers had not accounted for. The room designed for fire was the one place fire was not. Touch the wall. Feel the air pump arrested mid-cycle beneath your palm. A hiss of air caught mid-escape around the door seals. The sound of a system working as designed, keeping hydrogen out, keeping cigarette smoke in. In approximately 10 seconds, the fire will consume this section of the ship. The pressurization system will keep running until the power fails. It will do its job until the moment the job no longer exists. A man behind the small bar counter, mid-30s, steward's uniform. His hand rests on a bottle, his eyes turned towards the door. Lean across the bar. Examine his hands. Steady. Max Schulze, bartender. Stationed here to serve drinks and to ensure that no passenger carries a flame from the smoking room into the ship. He will make it out through the bar's external hatch. The danger was never where they watched for it. Push back through the airlock. Both doors, the pressure change, back into the darkening corridor. The fire is closer now. The orange light is brighter. The heat has arrived. Descend the stairway, A deck to B deck. The stairwell is crowded with frozen figures pushing downward, their faces lit orange from below and behind, the fire's glow reflecting off the narrow walls. A man in the corridor, mid-40s, steward's uniform. His arms are around a passenger, physically pushing them towards a window. Examine his face. Not panic, not fear. 14 years of rehearsing this drill in his mind, and now the drill is real. Crouch beside the window. Watch his technique. Heinrich Kubis is not suggesting. He is not guiding. He is grabbing people, men, women, and shoving them through windows. He knows what hydrogen fire means. He served in the war. He has seen it before. In a hydrogen fire, you have seconds, not minutes. Every second of hesitation is a death. He will survive. He will save multiple lives in these few seconds through the simple act of putting his hands on people and pushing them toward air. Smoke hangs in a grey ribbon from the ceiling vent, caught mid-pour through the ventilation system. The first visible sign inside B deck that the ship is burning above them. Touch the wall of the corridor. The surface is warm under your hand. Heat from the fire above and behind, conducted through the aluminum structure, the metal holding the temperature of the moment the fire reached this far. The fire has reached this far forward, through the hull, consuming gas cells in sequence, the doped fabric feeding it, the hydrogen lifting the flames upward, the burning structure falling around them. Press against the door from the passenger section to the keel corridor, the same door you examined hours ago, the only connection between passenger and crew spaces. Turn the handle. The door opens outward, into the keel corridor, and the heat hits your face. Look through. The keel corridor is half filled with fire. Diesel flame from the fuel tanks layered over hydrogen flame, the two chemistries meeting in the narrow space. The escape hatches the crew uses are through this corridor, but so is the fire. The door that could save passengers also opens onto their death. This single door is the choke point the designers never planned for. The passenger spaces were sealed from the crew spaces for comfort and quiet. In normal operations, the separation was a luxury. In a fire, it is a trap. The passengers who find this door and push through to the crew hatches beyond the flames will live. The passengers who don't know it exists will rely on windows. A doorway to the right. B-deck's shower room. The ship's only shower. A shower on an aircraft in 1937. Turn the tap. The water that feeds this shower is ballast water, the same water being dumped from the stern to compensate for the leaking gas cell. The windows you watch the Atlantic through are now the exits. Look through the B-deck window. The ground is close, the field visible below. Men caught mid-run across the wet grass, the mooring mast ahead. Press your palm against the window glass. Feel the vibration of the structure failing around you. A low tremor that is not a sound, but a feeling. The frequency of the entire airframe caught between shape and collapse. The ship is at perhaps 50 feet now, close enough to see individual faces on the ground, close enough to jump, close enough that some will survive by riding the wreckage to the earth. The nose has not yet hit. The forward hydrogen cells are still burning. The final collapse is seconds away. The ground is coming up to meet the ship, or the ship is falling to meet the ground. The difference no longer matters. The deck drops, the walls crumple. The ship folds around you like a closing hand. The heat peaks, white, total, and then is replaced by cold air, wet grass, the shock of open sky where there was ceiling. 26 seconds. The fastest time skip in this investigation. The shortest passage of time. The most devastating. The ship fall in on itself. The duralumin skeleton folds forward like a closing accordion. The ring frames telescope into one another. The bow section drops last. A final burst of flame shooting from the nose as it strikes the ground. And then a silence that's not silence. The silence after the loudest thing you have ever heard. The silence that is made of small sounds, crackling, dripping, the hiss of steam where water meets hot metal. Wet grass under your hands. Heat on one side, cold on the other. The smell of burned aluminum and diesel fuel. May 6th, 1937, 7:25 and 34 seconds. The nose of the Hindenburg has struck the ground. The entire 804-foot structure is collapsing forward. People are running in every direction. Morrison is crying. The Hindenburg lies across the ground. Step into the wreckage field. Feel the heat radiating from the earth itself, the grass dry and scorched beneath your feet, the moisture boiled out of it by burning diesel and molten aluminum. The entire rigid structure is mid-collapse. The longitudinal girders have buckled and bent, but the circular frames hold, the bones outlasting the body. The geometry of destruction is readable in every angle. Which frames failed first? Which held longest? The load path of the collapse visible in the bending metal. The fire has changed character. No longer the pale blue of hydrogen, but the thick orange of diesel. The remaining fuel in the keel tanks alight. Black smoke and orange flame, mundane after the ethereal hydrogen. The ship's shadow is gone, replaced by the ship itself, lying in the field it was supposed to float above. The time from first visible flame to this moment, 32 to 34 seconds. The fastest disaster in aviation history that was not an instantaneous explosion. Walk among the first responders. Navy personnel caught mid-stride towards the fire, not away. Fire extinguishers in hand, blankets over their arms, examine the nearest man, young, Navy uniform. His face is a mixture of training and terror, the expression of a man running towards something no training manual prepared him for. The rescue is immediate. These men were standing in formation minutes ago, waiting to grab landing ropes. Now they are pulling people from burning wreckage. Step past the running Navy men. Look down at the field behind the main wreckage. A section of framework has fallen separate from the main structure. A lattice of duralumin girders, still hot, lying across a shape on the grass. Crouched beside the shape, a man, civilian clothes. Caught under the fallen framework, his body half covered by aluminum lattice. Check his face. Alan Hagerman, 43, civilian ground crew. The only person on the ground killed by the Hindenburg. 36 deaths total. 13 passengers, 22 crew, 1 ground crew. Hagerman was in the wrong place, standing where a section of the disintegrating hull came down. The framework pinned him. Every other ground crew member survived. The line between life and death at Lakehurst was measured in feet. A figure emerging from the smoke, walking upright, steady, but wrong somehow. The silhouette is wrong. Approach him. His uniform is burned away. His skin is blackened over most of his body. But he is upright, mid-stride, dignified. A captain's bearing even now. Captain Ernst Lehmann, 51, burned beyond survival, but not beyond consciousness. He stands before Commander Rosendahl, mouth open, the words mid-delivery. I don't understand it. 25 years of airship command. Not one fire. Not one hydrogen ignition in an operational Zeppelin. And now, this. He will be taken to a hospital in Lakewood. He will die at 6 in the evening on May 7th. Less than 24 hours from now. How does a man who has given his life to hydrogen say, I don't understand it, when the hydrogen finally burns? Walk past Lehmann. His figure recedes into the smoke behind you. The skeletal remains of the bow section ahead. Step into the wreckage of the bow. The duralumin framework still stands in places. Touch a ring frame. Warm, but not hot here. The triangular cross-section of the girder precise under your fingers, each rivet still in place. The engineering is beautiful, and visible for the first and only time. In flight, passengers never saw this structure. Only the crew walked through it. Now, it is open to anyone who looks. Find the mooring coupling in the wreckage. Heavy steel, twisted but intact. the mechanism that was supposed to connect to the mast. Grip the coupling handle. The steel is warm. The mechanism is still functional. The connection was never made. The ship died 200 feet short of its destination. The coupling was ready. The mast was ready. The ground crew was ready. The hydrogen was not. Push through the wreckage toward the cargo area. Twisted aluminum, fallen girders, a postal bag visible beneath a framework section. Pull the postal bag free. Stiff canvas, stenciled, United States mail. The exterior singed but the bag intact. Open it. Letters inside. Some charred at the edges, some untouched. The Postal Service seal, on each one unbroken. Pick up a letter. The address is legible. A New York address. The stamp franked at Lakehurst. The U.S. Postal Service will deliver this mail. Singed letters will arrive at their destinations with a purple stamp. Damaged in transit. Hindenburg disaster. Some recipients will keep them forever. Some will sell them at auction decades later. The char marks will become proof of provenance. The damage will become the value. Look down into the collapsed cargo hold, the space where Joseph Sparr's German Shepherd was kennelled, the kennel crate crushed under fallen structure, the wire mesh door bent, the interior dark. Ulla is dead. Sparr, who survived by hanging from a window frame and dropping to the ground, will mourn the dog publicly. The newspapers will run the story. A leash still clipped to the crate door. Leather. The buckle intact. The only remaining connection between the acrobat and his dog. Walk aft. Stepping over framework. Stepping around hot metal. The wreckage becoming denser, more tangled. The passenger section ahead. Walk through the passenger section wreckage. The cabin walls flattened. The linen covering burned away. The aluminum structure exposed. Open a crushed suitcase. Clothing inside. A man's shirt. European cut. Partially burned. A name tag sewn into the collar. The lettering in German. The 25 cabins are a single layer of wreckage now. The two decks compressed. A deck and B deck merged into one plane of twisted metal and personal effects. Step on something that crunches. Look down. A scatter of white fragments across the debris. Pick up a shard. Smooth glaze. The DZR crest visible on the curved surface. Bavarian china from the dining room. Turn it over. The maker's mark on the base. And beneath it, the swastika. Still legible on a piece smaller than your palm. The aluminum cutlery nearby. Forks and knives, twisted by heat, but recognizable. The cheap, lightweight metal surviving better than the fine china. The china you held at noon, the plate you turned over to find the DZR crest, is this shard. 7 hours between the intact plate and the fragment. The swastika survived the fire. It will survive the war too, in a different way. A gap in the wreckage, a chair recognizable from the lounge. The upholstery burned away, but the metal frame intact. Crouch beside it. Touch the metal frame, still warm. This is where Margaret Mather sat, reading calmly while the ship burned around her. She was one of the last passengers out, pulled from the wreckage by ground crew, barely injured. She will write that she did not believe what was happening could really be happening. The disbelief killed others. For Mather, disbelief and luck aligned. Look for cabin B18 in the wreckage. The cabin you entered at noon. The toy horse. The family photograph. The wreckage here is indistinguishable. Cabins merged into a single layer, personal effects scattered and charred. Somewhere in this wreckage, Irene Donor's body and her daughter, Irene Jr.'s body. Werner and Walter are alive, somewhere on the field, burned, in shock, the carved wooden horse. If it survived, it is buried here. If it didn't, it burned with the mother who chose to save 2 children and lost 2. Open a cabin door, or what remains of one. The aluminum panel is warped, bent inward by the collapse, the cabin number melted to an unreadable smear. Inside, the berths are flattened. A mirror, cracked but intact, still mounted on the wall. Look into it, your own face, lit by the amber glow of the still burning wreckage behind you. The mirror frame is aluminum, DZR stamped into the base. The same mark on everything aboard this ship, the corporate branding of an airline that will not exist by morning. A toothbrush on the floor below the mirror, bristles singed. The small domestic evidence of someone who expected to unpack tonight, to brush their teeth, to sleep in a New York hotel, to telephone home in the morning. The routine that was 32 seconds from resuming when the glow appeared above the tail fin. Walk out of the wreckage, the aluminum and fabric giving way to grass, the heat fading behind you, the open field ahead, a piece of wall panel in the debris. Pick it up. The surface is painted, a fragment of coastline recognizable. This is a piece of the lounge murals, Magellan's route, or Cook's, or Columbus's. The painted record of exploration journeys displayed on a vessel that made its own. The Hindenburg was an explorer's machine, the first aircraft to cross the Atlantic in regular, scheduled service. This wreckage ends the tradition they celebrated. Walk across the field, the wreckage behind you, the perimeter ahead, the smoke thinning, the wet grass cool underfoot. Morrison, still standing, microphone still in hand. But his posture has collapsed, shoulders rounded, his free hand pressed to his face. Reach for the transcription disc. Feel the vibration of the cutting stylus tracing its spiral. Nelson is keeping the equipment running, recording Morrison's grief as steadily as he recorded his commentary. Oh, the humanity, and all the passengers screaming around here. The words are on the disc. His voice is raw, breaking. The words stumble. I can't talk, ladies and gentlemen. This is the worst thing I've ever witnessed. Crouch beside the recording apparatus. The Presto transcription disc, 12 inches of acetate, spinning on the turntable, the cutting stylus riding the groove it has carved. Touch the edge of the disc, warm from the motor beneath. The groove spirals inward, each revolution a few seconds of audio. Morrison's voice physically etched into the surface. The disc is nearly full. Nelson will need to change it soon, or would, if time were moving. This disc will not be broadcast today. It will be played on WLS Chicago tomorrow, and then copied again, until Morrison's voice becomes the permanent soundtrack of the 20th century's relationship with disaster. Scan the field. The 4 camera positions you passed earlier are still capturing. Each one a mechanical witness, each disc and reel a record that will arrive in theatres before the investigation does. Walk among the survivors scattered on the grass, some sitting, some lying down, some standing in shock, blankets around their shoulders. Examine the nearest survivor. A man, his suit singed, his face red from heat exposure, staring at the wreckage, not speaking. Most survived. Most jumped, climbed, or were thrown from the ship during its 32-second descent. Some rode the wreckage to the ground. 62 people alive. 36 dead. The distance between the two was measured in seconds of decision. A man apart from the others, seated on the grass, his face and hands bandaged, a Navy medic beside him, examine his injuries, burns across his face, his hands swollen, his Zeppelin uniform partially melted to his skin. Captain Max Pruss survived, but his face will be permanently scarred. He will never command another flight. There will be no other flights. He will maintain until his death in 1960 that the fire was sabotage. Most investigators disagree. The probable cause? A static spark igniting leaked hydrogen from cell 4. The simplest explanation. The one Pruss could never accept. After May 6th, 1937, the passenger airship industry stops. Completely, immediately. A woman sitting alone on the grass, apart from the other survivors. Her coat is gone. Her hair is disheveled, but she is not burned. Examine her face. Calm. The calm of someone who has not yet processed what has happened. Gertrude Adelt, Leonhard's wife, the journalist's wife from the writing room. Both survived. Her hands rest in her lap, fingers interlaced, steady. On her wrist, a watch, still running, the second hand frozen mid-sweep in this stopped moment. The watch reads 7:26. 1 minute since the fire began. 1 minute that contains everything. Walk towards the lights, the ambulance station at the field's edge, its windows lit, figures moving inside, the organized chaos of emergency medicine. Step inside, a facility designed for routine airfield injuries, now handling mass burn casualties. Touch the supply shelf, gauze rolls diminishing, morphine vials lined up and being counted. The Navy supplies are running low. Civilian ambulances are being called from towns across Monmouth County. The scale has exceeded what Lakehurst can handle alone. Find Lehman inside, seated now. A Navy blanket around his shoulders, his skin glistening with burn treatment, his eyes lucid despite burns over 80% of his body. He is speaking to Rosendahl, coherent, professional, as though delivering a report. I don't understand it. The sentence again. The words of a man who gave 25 years to hydrogen and cannot accept what hydrogen has done. Touch the blanket around his shoulders. Rough, Navy-issue wool, smelling of mothballs. Doing work it was never designed for. 2 children on a stretcher, small, burned, silent, their eyes open but seeing nothing in this room. Kneel beside the stretcher. Examine the burns on Werner's arms, 8 years old, the skin blistered and raw. His brother Walter beside him, 10. Their burns are being treated. They do not yet know their mother and sister are dead. Their father Herman is in New York, waiting for a family of 5 to arrive. 4 will arrive. 2 will arrive alive. Pick up the clipboard from the table beside them. A list in progress, handwritten. 2 columns, names and status. Read down the list. Some names have check marks. Alive. Some have dashes. Unconfirmed. Some have nothing. Count the check marks. The tally is incomplete. Survivors are still being found. But the number is growing. 40, 50, 60, compared to the manifest. 97 aboard. The nurse's arithmetic. 97 minus the check marks equals the dead. She will reach 36. The Hindenburg survival rate, 64%, is better than most people will ever assume. The disaster will be remembered as total annihilation. It was not. Most people aboard survived. Step outside the ambulance station. The evening air, the smoke still drifting, the wreckage still glowing in the distance, the pine barrens dark against the horizon. Stand on the wet grass. The wreckage burning low now. Diesel fire, not hydrogen fire. The skeleton visible as a dark lattice against the fading sky. The wreckage will burn for several more hours. The investigation will begin tomorrow. The newsreel footage will reach theatres within days. The LZ-130 Graf Zeppelin II, the Hindenburg sister ship, nearly complete in Friedrichshafen, will never carry a paying passenger. Look up at the empty sky. Where the Hindenburg hung 10 minutes ago, there is nothing. Then, look down. The duralumin skeleton is still cooling on the wet field, ring frames holding their circular shape, even in collapse, the geometry of the structure visible for the first and only time. Walk to the nearest piece of fallen structure. A section of girder, duralumin, warm but no longer hot. Pick it up. It is lighter than you expect. This is the material that made the airship possible. Strong enough to hold 804 feet of structure together, light enough to stay aloft. The rivet holes are still precise. The material is still functional. The engineering did not fail. The engineering was correct. Pick up a rivet that has fallen from the joint. A single aluminum rivet, no larger than a shirt button, one of a million like it. Each one placed by hand in the Friedrichshafen Assembly Hall. Press it in your palm. The Graf Zeppelin LZ-127 Hugo Eckener's masterpiece. Made 590 flights, 1.7 million kilometers, 0 passenger fatalities. It'll be retired in July 1937. Deflated, stored. In 1940, the Nazis will melt it down for wartime aluminum. The age of the passenger airship ends on this field, in 32 seconds, in front of 4 cameras. The sky belongs to the airplane now. It will never belong to the airship again. Somewhere in Friedrichshafen, Hugo Eckener is not on this field. He stepped away from command because he could not endorse flying hydrogen when helium existed. His answer, when it comes, will be 3 words: hydrogen, static, spark. The ambulance lights fade. The evening darkens around you. Time reverses its final breath. 34 seconds backward. The wreckage reassembles. The skeleton lifts from the grass. The ring frames straighten. The fire unburns. Orange receding to blue. Blue receding to nothing. The hydrogen returns to the cells. The fabric reforms over the skeleton. The ship is whole again. The glow is there. Pale orange above the upper tail fin, the same glow you first saw. Nothing has changed. Everything has changed. May 6th, 1937, 7:25 p.m. The Hindenburg at 200 feet. The fire 2 seconds old. You are back where you began. The glow is still there, pale orange above the upper fin, the first seconds of a 32-second fire. Unchanged, still frozen, still 2 seconds old. You know what this glow will become. You have walked the keel corridor and the passenger promenade. You have stood in the smoking room where fire was permitted, and in the stern where fire was not. You have held the mail that will be delivered, and the letters that will never be finished. You have watched a mother push her children from a window. You have read a nurse's clipboard. You have counted the dead and the living. You know what 32 seconds contains. Kubis fades. Still in the B-deck corridor, arms around a passenger, shoving them toward the window. His hands do not let go. Layman fades, walking from the wreckage, skin blackened, dignity intact. I don't understand it. The donor children fade. Werner and Walter on the stretcher, eyes open, not yet knowing. Morrison fades, still crying. The microphone still in his hand, the transcription disc still turning, the cutting stylus still tracing the groove that will carry his voice into every living room in America. His words, oh, the humanity, will become the sound of disaster itself. He did not know he was recording history. He thought he was recording a routine landing. The swastika on the tail fin fades, 45 feet of black against white against red, dissolving into the dark behind your eyelids. The symbol will outlast the ship by 8 years. The ship's name, Hindenburg, the German president who appointed Hitler, will outlast the symbol. The word will come to mean not a man, not a government, but a fireball. A word that meant power will mean failure. The pine barrens fade, the wet grass, the mooring mast, the duralumin dissolves, replaced by plaster, by familiar walls, by the weight of your own ceiling above you. The weight of your own body returns, shoulders against the mattress, the particular heaviness of a head on its own pillow. The ceiling above you is not silver, not translucent, not 800 feet away. It is close and dark and yours. Somewhere in 1937, a field in New Jersey is cooling. The duralumin will be cold by morning. The investigation teams will arrive with notebooks and cameras of their own. The questions will take decades. The answers will always come back to the same 3 words. 32 seconds. The end of an age that believed the sky was big enough for ships. The diesel smell fades, replaced by linen, by pillow, by the particular scent of your own room. The Hindenburg is gone. The pine barrens are gone. The wet field and the burning skeleton and Morrison's broken voice, all gone. There is only the dark of your room and the quiet and the slow pull of sleep. Rest.